And welcome back. We are going to get started first by working on the background portion of our image. And since this is a backdrop, one of those common elements that we do see is, of course, the sky. So what I'm going to do to get started with that is I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer here. And want to make sure that is on the bottom here. We're just going to go ahead and rename that as background, just so that we have that for a quick, easy glance, we know what that is. And let's go ahead and make it the appropriate color for a sky. I'm going to choose a blue. It doesn't have to necessarily be a dark blue because we might have this, for example, during the daytime. If you're doing more of a nighttime scene, obviously you would come into the darker shades. But since I'm doing more daylight scene, for now I'm going to go ahead and keep that a little bit lighter. And all I'm going to do is use my fill bucket tool to go ahead and fill it in. And you notice I had a pattern there. It's because I did not change it off of pattern. So just as a quick reminder, if you have that happen, don't forget if you use the pattern last, change it back into foreground. So let's go ahead and fill that in. And you can see, of course, it has filled in everywhere here. And you can see our bricks are right now on top. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint in some clouds here. Now, I'm not going to do this how we did in the past where we created a shape and manipulated it, because we're going to end up covering a lot of these cloud elements with different structures of our image. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to switch to my pencil tool. And I'm actually going to bring that brush size up just a little bit here, just so I have a nice good size to kind of make some keystrokes with. And I'm going to go back over here into my color picker. I'm going to bring this color much closer to the white. I don't want a pure white here because that might be just a little too much, but I do want it so it's lighter and a little less saturated than what I have here for the sky color. Then I'm going to do is just take and make some brush strokes going across my screen. They don't have to be perfect here. The big thing is, again, remember most of this is going to end up being covered by our final image. And so again, these are just going to kind of be representations of your clouds. Now I'm just going to do a couple keystrokes around here. You can play around with how you want, but ultimately your clouds might be a little different than what I have here. But again, I'm just going to go play around with this a little bit, and when I come back, let's just see what we came up with. Alright. Here's what I ultimately came up with for my cloud layer. And so let's go ahead and do one more thing here. We're going to add a brand new layer. And this is going to be our mountains. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this mountains. Now ultimately this will kind of blend as part of our background. But what we're going to do here is we're actually going to kind of move more into a different tone here. I'm going to choose more of a purplish tone. Simply because I want that to be colors that are going to be affected by the sunlight. And so this looks like a pretty good tone here that I can use. And what we're going to do is on this layer, we're going to go ahead and just paint in some mountain shapes here. And however we want those to be is fine. Yours might look a little different than what I have here. But we're just going to go ahead and once that's in place, just go ahead and fill that in. In fact, if you were to hide this first layer, you can see we have, of course, our mountain shaper. And I can actually just speed this along by using the paint bucket tool to fill this in here. If I just kind of select this region here, I could, of course, select this and then just do a inversion of it. And we should, of course, once that is inverted, be able to fill within that region. Or again, you can just switch the pencil tool and just fill it in without those bricks there. It should be pretty easy to do. I can also, of course, make my brush size really large here to fill this in here very quickly. Alright, once you, of course, have that filled in and are satisfied with the look that you are going for your mountain region, you can then, of course, use things like your eraser tool to kind of brush this up and get it to the final look that you are going for. So just to kind of demonstrate, I'm going to take my eraser tool, bring that up just a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of add a little bit of features in here. So for example, I might take this and say, you know, I actually want to put some different hills and crests kind of effect to this. I want to necessarily have it all just nice and even and uniform. We want to give a little bit of feature to our mountains here to kind of give it some characteristics. So it's not just a simple bunch of triangular tops here. So this is just, again, adding little things that's going to make your image kind of just stand out just a little bit more. Alright, I'm going to pause the video. When we come back, I'll show you my final image complete with all the layers added on top of it. And here we are with everything all now put together. We have our mountains. which of course gives us this region right here. We of course have our original layer with the brick pattern, and we have our background, which consists of our sky and of our clouds. So we have now accomplished the mission of setting up our background layer. Now there's obviously more that we could add to this, like for example, we can add maybe the sun coming in and things like that, or we could add more detail to our clouds, but this is a good start for making a quick background layer to this image. And when we come back next time, we'll go ahead and start working at diving in, adding even more detail, because remember, we still need to tackle both the midground layer and the foreground.